Major data processing centers connect tens of thousands of servers every year, but during activity decay, these computers are basically idle. Often they're loaded just for a few %. Meanwhile, the amount of electricity spent equals to the full load.
При этом тратится такое же количество электроэнергии, как и при полной нагрузке.
Russian company Parallels Research, supported by Skolkovo Fund, managed to create a software solution which allows to make the best use of the available computational capability and to lower the idle time without lowering the quality of customer service. The ambitious task solution definitely did not start on a green field. The parent company Parallels had already earned a great reputation as a software developer of cloud computing by 2010.
Parallels has existed for quite a long time. The people managing the company, its ideologists and technical leaders are well known not only in Russia, but all over the world.
As it happens in major companies, Parallels had early-stage developments as well as products already drawn or being drawn to the market.
The idea that one could acquire information resources in a dynamic and elastic way, then configure processing center resources somewhere on the internet to get the service in the way that you want it, has been nurtured for quite a long time.
In order to make a product in demand, it is necessary to have serious financial and creative investment. Doing it on an independent basis means to funnel assets from the core business. The project prospects at the current stage are not clear enough. That is why risks are high. But the way was found. In the end of 2010, Parallels started partnership negotiations with Skolkovo Innovation Center. At first, the company made a residency application, which was reviewed by an expert committee.
If a company is going through its early stages, it's impossible to make a thorough examination and foresee what's going to happen to the product or the project in 5 to 7 years. Basically, that's not our job. Our task is to support companies in the risk zone at the early stages of development. We need to support both the company and the market, which is either being careful or for some reason cannot invest more in that company.
Subsidiary company Parallels Research became a resident of Skolkovo IT cluster in March 2011. Skolkovo Fund agreed to co-finance the development together with Parallels. The companies invested 300 billion rubles on a parity basis. The money is given in tranches after confirmation that the company successfully accomplished the previous step.
Skolkovo offered us terms that we liked very much, and that helped us to take the development to market much faster than we could have on our own. It's a market that's distinguished by high competitiveness. Therefore, had we not appealed to Skolkovo for financial help, it would have taken us longer and possibly lost us the market lead.
Parallels Research received the first tranche in May 2011, and in November 2011 the first stage of software development, named Parallels Automation for Cloud Infrastructure, or PACI, was completed.
We have our flagship product, Parallels Automation. It automates service provider activity. PACI is its module, which automates the cloud service provider.
Before, a company should have addressed a hosting provider to rent a definite physical server, but now there is an opportunity to choose and set up all the parameters of the server on one's own, depending basically on immediate needs. Like in a car game, one can broaden the road depending on the traffic. PACI, like most products of Parallels, is service provider-oriented, or more specifically, intended to make their data centers work more effectively. That is why PACI is extremely simple both for a service user and a company providing the service.
The screen, which we see now, is viewed by users who come to the store of a host provider who installed our product. The user is trying to buy a virtual server. He comes in here and he can choose server configuration, move the sliders to manage disk space, memory, the number of processors. Then he makes a purchase, fills out his details, credit card, and from that moment he's the owner of a host. He owns a virtual server.
But in order to enter the store and rent a virtual server, a service provider administrator should set up the infrastructure necessary for a cloud. It is quite a laborious job, but a special program developed by Parallels Research smoothens the procedure and helps to set up certain infrastructure components.
It includes servers where the end user's virtual servers are physically located. It includes networks in which the servers are united, as well as backups, templates for virtual machine creation, and other parameters that must be systematically defined by the provider.
The software appeared in March 2012, in less than a year after the active work phase started.
The product was developed by the company. The research center here analyzed it, and the product was examined both domestically and externally. And honestly, we're happy to say that today the product complies with the highest world standards and is in demand.
PACI was installed at 7 companies, providers from Europe, USA and Southeast Asia. 7 providers are not so few, since PACI can only be used by major telecommunication or hosting companies, which are not so numerous in the world.
We see demand for this product coming from 2 categories of consumer. First, it's the classic hosting companies, and second, are major telecommunications companies offering cloud services to a mass market of medium to small businesses.
One of the PACI users is a telecommunication company BMIT from Malta that traditionally offered its clients an access to data storage, hosting and various applications. But lately it has been decided to draw the company to a new market, to offer infrastructure as a service and to launch a new product line. But BMIT is a local company in Malta, and virtualization solutions are offered by global players such as Amazon and Microsoft.
We decided to use PACI, which lets us deliver services and solutions of the same level of service and quality as our competitors. The terms and the features offered by PACI are flexible and scalable to attract the customers we're aiming for. I think we'll be able to compete with the most aggressive of enterprises, with competing offers, from the traditional players, such as Amazon and others.
In fact, the only competitor of the new Parallels research software can be Elastic Compute Cloud of American company Amazon. It possessed excessive server capability, which was rarely used to serve buying activity splashes at Amazon.com. That is why the company thought of its rational usage by means of leasing it out.
Our clients who buy Parallels are hosts, service providers, and they have a natural desire to play in the market, to some extent to compete with Amazon. But Amazon doesn't offer its infrastructure to provide cloud services. We make a product which allows a hosting provider to become a small Amazon.
PACI's task is to allow its users to compete with Amazon Cloud Services and provide such services from their own data centers. Imagine that a businessman who rents a building for a hotel can change the size and number of the rooms depending on the number of guests. PACI allows major hosters and providers make money by leasing out its capacities to small companies. But it is also profitable to minor players, since the configuration of the used infrastructure can be dynamically varied, and the fee is charged only for the actually used capacity. It is convenient for companies which have explicit peaks and decays in sales. For example, a florist's online store is overloaded with orders before September 1st and March 8th, and after that it's rather slow. It's easy to handle the traffic splash by changing the cloud settings. A normally functioning website, even heavily loaded, can provide quarterly revenue before a holiday. Meanwhile, it will be necessary to pay only for a few days, when the high capacities were used. The partnership with Skolkovo Fund allowed Parallels to develop a new technology quickly and without drawing assets out of the core business, and it does not only concern the co-financing. Skolkovo residents get PR support, marketing help and project maintenance. They're also provided with some privileges.
The most notable privilege is a tax concession. The biggest costs for a company working in R&D are for personnel, for salaries. And our tax concession allows optimizing the budget up to 20 to 25%, which is quite important, especially for startup companies.
Налоговые льготы – частичное или полное освобождение физических или юридических лиц от налогов.
Tax concessions are a partial or full tax exemption for individuals or legal units. There are 3 kinds of tax concessions: retrieval, removal of certain objects out of tax liabilities; discounts, which allow spending the money for purposes upheld by the society and the state; and exemption, reduction of tax rate or tax amount.
Для IT-компаний налоговые льготы и
tax concessions and, as consequence, and salary fund tax reduction are virtually important for an IT company. The brains are the main asset of the company, and high salaries allow hiring highly proficient employees. There are other advantages. Customs privileges help startups not to pay huge amounts of money when they import equipment. There are migration privileges that simplify the engagement of foreign specialists. Usually it takes about a year and a half to get an approval for appointment of a foreign citizen to a leading position. In comparison to such terms, Parallel Research established Emir Sharif instantly. His authority is managing and coordination of developing teams. One of the main tasks is to figure out market needs.
What's the challenge for designing software? Actually, there are many challenges, but number one is to understand what the customer wants before the customer knows it themselves. If you ask, what's your problem today, you ask them about a problem that they had yesterday. They couldn't tell you the problems they're having now, because they don't understand them yet. Very few can see the problems they will have. The key challenge is to understand customers' pains and problems even before they have them.
All the preferences are given free of charge. The only condition is plan implementation and successful company functioning. Skolkovo does not take part in management, does not become a shareholder of a resident, and has no claims for intellectual property.
Our only requirement is that intellectual property produced by a Russian company held by the Skolkovo Fund with privileges and cash should stay in Russia, at least partially. But that doesn't prevent a company from selling their products or licenses all over the world.
Now, the company management evaluates the project payback time as less than 5 years. To imagine the possible amount of money, it's enough to say that Amazon's 4-year revenue for such services reached $750 million, and by 2014, it is expected to be $2.5 billion. So it means that PACI's prospects in the market are fair enough.